right, welcome to Prayers Radio Show. I think this is number 6, is it, Paul?
I think so.
Oh my gosh. Well, we here at Prayers Radio have conversations about science of mind. It was by Ernest Holmes, for those of you that don't know. And what's really interesting is we have applied conversations. I don't want to hear about fairy stuff and you're going to be feeling great and no, I want to know about what works. How is it applied? Am I applying it right? Am I applying it a different way that may work even better? Because they have, spiritual mind treatment. And what's the other one? Affirmative prayer. They call them all sorts. We call prayer all sorts of things. 5-step, 7-step. Anyways, fine tune it down. That's what we want to do. I'm Reverend Rich, and you are
Paul. Hey,
Paul. There he is. So today we have an interesting show. What were we talking about before the show?
How to apply the spiritual mind treatment to everything in our life, from personal to business.
Ooh, well, I like the business part. I mean, I'm sure a lot of our audience, you like money, right?
Yeah, it's not about the money, it's about the prosperity of the business.
And what that prosperity brings to you and the community of your life, and then it sort of has the ripple effect that goes throughout everything around you. Sort of like prayer. When you do prayer and you do prayer on yourself and then it ripples out and affects everybody else around you. That's pretty cool. What do you think about that? What do you do for your business and stuff when you're looking at doing prayer and applying it?
Well, there's great meditations by Ernest Holmes geared toward business. And so I'll read and then go into a spiritual mind treatment with my business in mind. And always how we think and feel is always going to manifest. So how are we thinking and feeling about, let's say, a business? Are we feeling customers coming in, clients coming in? Are we feeling the busyness of what we have to offer? And if we are, then the law says yes, and then it's applied and we are busy. But
Yeah,
yet,
go ahead.
But if there's any doubt in that doubt then negates everything that we just said. If you're not feeling it really in your body, in your thoughts, and your feelings, then it's not going to manifest.
That's interesting. Well, I would just like to point out that I would like to welcome our Twitch audience, because I'm looking at the background. That's me going over here looking at other things. I'm like, Paul, talk. And I'm looking at our Twitch feed right now, and I'm looking at our Prayers Radio feed, and we're actually live on both platforms. And Rumble also. I think Rumble might have been a little weird just today, but whoa. So let's go ahead and do a prayer real quick while we're doing this, because I'm trying to finish this part of it up. But what we want to do is focus on it. And when we're focusing on doing a prayer, we're telling the universe what the heck we want. Would you agree with that?
Well, yes, and we're also connecting with the divine power that is. So we're becoming consciously one with that. Even though we are already one with it, we consciously become one, and then all the power that there is pulsing through us.
I got that song going through it. I got the
power. And if we just knew how much power that we can yield through a spiritual mind treatment, then all our problems would be solved.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's a matter of accepting how much power you can. I mean, is it okay? I want water, and then a drop of water falls on you, or is it I see the river, me showing up to the river and it being here, and it's all here. It's a matter of how much you can expect. I mean, am I going to go over the mountain and see that river, or am I going to go to the top of the mountain and get hit by a random drop of water from a cloud that decided to drop some water on me? How much can you accept? And I think, in my opinion, the universe is infinite. It has more than enough of everything to give to everyone, everywhere, at every time. But we also have to realize that you can drown in a bathtub. In other words, if you ask for too much, you might be overwhelmed. Oh, I need so much water. Oh, okay. Well, you've got too much. You may be swimming in it. So you have to be exact in the prayer that you're actually doing. What do you think?
Yes and no.
All right, tell me.
Yes, we need to be exact on what we're praying for, but we also need to let it go, to let spirit guide us in the way it's going to manifest, the way it's going to show up for us.
That's deep.
Well, I had one of my peeps in my spiritual circle. She was praying for a car. She wanted a little red Corvette. And she put it out there in the universe. She thought it, she felt it. Next thing you know, she gets a little matchbox of a little red Corvette. She
Are
didn't
you using my
specify.
story from show two?
Sorry?
Are you using my story from show two?
Oh, no, this is great. This is just online on Thursday.
Oh, this happened real?
This happened for real.
Oh my God. You remember we talked about my friend Arthur and his Bentley?
Oh, yes, right.
Oh my God. But did we manifest that?
Well, we manifest everything in our lives. We just have to be conscious of what we're doing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You know, some people, oh yeah, I want to see Pegasus and everything flying around. Be careful what you ask for. Oh,
Remember,
or
in our
oh,
philosophy, the law always says yes. It always affirms, no matter what we put into it. It doesn't
let's
say, oh,
talk.
no, you can't really have that. It says, yes, here's that and more.
What is that? I mean, in your mind, is it something physical? I mean, we know we've in our previous shows we talk about that you have to have that mental equivalent, that feeling that's inside of you that resonates, and then we say a prayer and release it out to the ethers, to God, Yahweh, or
To
what
the
we
law,
call
we
it, the
put it
law.
into the law. Yeah.
Yeah, we call it the law, but other people might call it something else. What do you think? I mean, we know what is the law because we're using definitions from Science of Mind on this.
Well, it's like the word God. God encompasses everything. It's first cause, it's spirit, it's intelligence. So many labels, but yet it's one thing. So the law is the same thing, the law of attraction, the law of mind. Whatever we want to label it, it's still working for us.
Hmm. Well, we had challenges this morning with the technology, and then we did a prayer on it. And there's certain times where in God's time that things happen, even though we know that when we do a prayer, it's like boom, right? And we are thinking this morning it was something like Mercury retrograde or some weird stuff like that, or maybe the goblins. There was these things called Gremlins in World War II with the airplanes, the bombers. They go up and they blame it on these Gremlins, or I think they were called Gremlins or something like that. That would always mess with the planes. And well, my theory is, and I'm putting it out there, and yes, this is my theory, is that those Gremlins have crawled into the computer systems, some of the computer systems. Those times where you turn on your computer and it just says, no, not today. What do you think?
Well, it's the same thing that when you do laundry, you put two socks in and only one sock comes out.
Or there's a place in the universe where it has millions of socks in it. I was thinking about that. But the law is exact. I did a prayer one time. Where's my phone? And I called my phone. And I realized it was on silent, and then I called it again and realized it was still on silent. And then I realized I had a watch, those iWatches you get. I got one of those little cheap
Mm.
ones. And I clicked on it and said, where's my phone? And it come back and said, I don't know where your phone is. Try find me. I'm like, I'm telling you what I want. I want my phone. Why am I the one that you're attached to? Where's it at? And a lot of times, at least in prayer, if you don't tell the universe exactly what you want or how you want it, it's not going to happen the way you want it. It's sort of like you and I've talked about AI and things like that. There's this science of it called prompting, where you have to prompt exactly what you want. Oh, please give me a summary of this document. Okay, it's 50 pages and it's in English. No, I want details on this document. Okay, here's your detail. So the more that you actually put into the prayer, the more you tell the universe what you want, there's more likely going to be a chance that you're going to get what you want. But it's that feeling that you're wanting. And I just bring it up because I was doing a thing on prompting, and I'm like, God, this is like the law. This is like our science of mind. This is like the law. Why? What? Those those of you seen our previous shows, Paul and I talk about some things, your Mac and things like that, and we talked about the use of the law to apply it, because in Prayers Radio, what we do is we have this conversation, and this conversation is, well, how does this stuff work, and why am I listening to these people? Why? Because we're trying to ask questions that you would have. I mean, we're live right now. We have a chat window with comments and stuff, so that people can put in chats, and we've had quite a few. We found some ones that we didn't answer last time. We're sorry about that. But they were short answer. Hey, are you here? I'm like, oh yeah, we're here. But the takeaway for that whole part, that whole ramble that I just did, was that you have to be exact, and it has to have that feeling inside of you. What is that feeling for you, and can you define that feeling? I know we call it a mental equivalent in this philosophy, but when do you just let go of that mental equivalent? I know at the end of the prayer you do it.
Well, you release it into the law. You state what you want, you feel it as if. It's like calling a catalog company. And you call a catalog company, they're like, can I help you? What do you want? Well, you could say, well, just send me something. And they're like, well, what do you want? What page? What item do you want? Very much like the law. I go into the law seeking peace and clarity. The law is going to bring me peace and clarity. But if I go into the law wanting peace and clarity, but I don't state that, the law has no idea.
Well, what does that look like? I mean, I've had people ask me about this. They'll sit there and we'll do a prayer for them, and I mean, is it like I have this dove that I'm pulling out of my chest, and I'm going, be free? The law. You're releasing it to law. Are you releasing it external, or are you releasing it inside of yourself, or are you
Well,
releasing it?
before we even get there, we have to know that we unify with this power that's greater than we are. As Ernest Holmes says, a power for good greater than we are that we can use, that we're using all the time. So once we unify with it and understand it's flowing through us, then we're at the prime part to put into law what we want.
That sounds cool. Because remember the five statements of a prayer. At least in our philosophy, what we teach inside a class is recognize that God is all there is. Unify with that presence that is God. Declare your whole perfect to complete, and then laundry list. And there's that unification step on the second one. And then give thanks, and then release it to law. I always do that. Perfect. I keep that in my head as an instant prayer to make it just boom, 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 because sometimes you have to do a quick prayer when you're thinking about stuff. And we say hello to our friends out in radio.net. We're actually streaming on them also 24/7. One of the neat things that I was thinking about is that you might be listening to this, and that prayer's, you could do that prayer yourself. You don't need to call anybody.
And you don't need the 5 steps. The 5 steps are there just to bring us into that union with that divine power that is everything that is.
Exactly. That once you could do what was called a 3-step prayer, just the first 3 parts, because you're just, you're recognizing, you're declaring, you're unifying, and the whole works there. And then you're able to just, boom, that's it. Because you know it in yourself that you're part of God, and that it's released into the law of action.
And we call it the one mind in our philosophy. There's one mind, and everyone is of that one mind.
It's funny. Holmes talks on, what page is that? I think it's 87. He said, he goes, there is no such thing as your mind, my mind, and God's mind. There is only mind in which we all live and move and have our being. I believe that's page 87. And then he goes on to say, "And things are ideas in form. What else could they be? There is nothing. There is. Let me see. There is nothing from which to make things except ideas. So in the beginning we behold nothing visible. There is only a infinite possibility, a limitless imagination, a consciousness, the only action of this consciousness being idea." And I believe that's page 87. And if I missed a few words, sorry.
Yeah, we bring everything into thought. And once you're in thought, you can change anything you want or need.
Well, we have something called the subjective mind. You want to define that, or should I define it?
Or go ahead.
Okay, that which we call the subjective mind is in reality our identity in infinite mind. It is the result of our mental attitudes. It is our mental atmosphere or center in the universal subjective mind, in which are retained all the images, impressions, inherited tendencies, and race suggestions. We see them. We see then. Let me get this right. We see then our subjective mind is the medium through which experiences come to us.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's still the same page because I had that page in my head. I was reading it the other day, going, "Oh yeah, that's good stuff." But what that really is that what we have in our minds is manifestations, those feelings that we want. And when we give thought to form, that becomes a reality through us. When we speak our word of truth out to the world, or even think our word or think what we want into ourselves, the silent prayer. Have you done, you do a silent prayer for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that silent prayer uh, just resonates throughout the whole thing. So, you might be talking to a spouse or a significant other, and you don't like the conversation or you don't like what's going on. You could just deny power to that and accept in its place something better. I don't want this feeling, or even ask God or the universal all, whatever you call God. Uh, I don't want this. I deny power to this. I accept in its place something higher and greater that God knows for me right now in my mind. Because sometimes I don't know what the heck I want. I know I want an ice cream, but am I going to get an ice cream? No, not that moment. Am I going to get rose petals coming down from the sky? Maybe, but not at that moment. But the point is that when you're talking to somebody or something, or you're in a specific situation, you have the power of God within you to actually change how you're feeling about that, how you're looking at that, and then that ripple effect, will just immediately happen and change around you. Now, don't tell the other person what you just changed. Just know that it's changed within yourself, because the reality will change in front of your eyes a lot of times.
And another way to do that is just to see the divine in that person.
Exactly. That's that rippling out, because you've had that thought, I see the divine in that person, and it goes out and becomes that divine person that you know to be so.
Yeah, you call that out from that person because everyone has that divine spark within them. Everything has that divine spark. And so we need to call that divine spark out.
And that's that individualized expression that we talk about, that consciousness, that um, the first cause, the spirit, the soul, and the body, the cause, the medium, the effect within you. I'm still going on the same page in my head. um, for the first cause can also be for our Christian audience or our Muslim audience, the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. I don't. I'm trying to remember the thing in the Quran. I can't remember the exact things. Forgive me for.
Yeah, and
Forgive me
everybody
for.
has a different name or different way of saying the
Yeah,
same thing.
but the Father, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, not the three gods, but the Trinity, the triune nature of the one God is how it's called. Triune nature of the one God. The I just did a video on it, so if you want to see it, it's pretty trippy. Because a lot of times even in any philosophy book or any religious text that you look at, you don't always remember what was put out there. But when you go back and you look at it, because I've broken them down in little pieces on Prayers Radio on the YouTube site, it's like, it said that. Why do I bring this up is because you have to realize that you change by experiencing more. You are more. You learn how to change a tire. Did you know how to change a tire before? No, but you've had to go out and read the little manual in the book, and you realize, oh, I know how to do it now that I've physically changed the tire. And sometimes we get to the point when we're changing a tire, and I'm using that as a metaphor, is that you didn't have a choice because you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're the only one with the tire, and you're the only one with the tire iron. And so you have to apply it at that time. There's no atheist in a foxhole, as they call it, more is that you're applying it right then. So what we do on Prayers Radio is we're saying to you that have that prayer inside of your pocket. We just discuss this situation. Oh, we're having a conversation. I don't like this. I don't want this. Denying power to that, accepting its place, seeing that person as a divine expression of God, actually talking nicer things to me, and it switches like that.
Yeah, a nice way to do it. One of my mentors early on in the teaching, her go-to prayer was, I am, God is, all is well. Simple. We know God is, I am, and then because of that I am, I know that everything in my life is well.
Damn, that sounds good.
It's powerful.
It really is. It's powerful. Say that one more time for us.
I am,
okay.
God is, all is well.
All is well. Is that cliche, or is that would that be considered a prayer in your mind?
That's a prayer, because knowing I'm unifying with that power greater than I am that power, unifying with it, and then through that power, all is well.
And see, that's what I'm talking about, is that the definitions are there. They're not exactly the same as I did them, but they're there. Recognition, declaration,
unification, yeah.
Unification, it's all there. It's all there in a conducive thing. And if I have this little, you've seen the radio.net thing. It says, if you don't do a prayer, you haven't got a prayer. That's cool. A lot of times we do prayers, and Jim Terrell said this. He's gonna be on our show, by the way, because he said he wanted to. Hopefully, Jim, if you're watching, we got that door open for you, and a few other folks that we might interview that are applying. Again, we apply science of mind. We don't, what was I saying? Oh, you don't go. He said this Sunday. You saw this thing, or it was the previous Sunday. He says you don't, or you even said it with the one with the gal that you were talking about. That she went to bed. Oh, I hope this works, right? No, that negates your prayer.
That sense of doubt, right?
Yeah, that doubt negates the prayer. I mean, we always say, page 55 of the Science of Mind, or 50, whatever it is. Anytime that you actually negate your, say, oh, I don't think it's going to work. Well, guess what? It's not going to work.
Exactly.
So our show, and we're getting to the end of it, is that when you're doing conversations and you're in business and you're doing things with other people out in the world, you can have that prayer and you can just say it in your silent voice, because it is coming from in, and then the ripples are going out. What do you think?
Yeah, silence is good, but verbal it's much better. When you verbalize, the energy goes out into the universe. Even though I'm thinking it, it's still working. For me, it's more powerful to voice it.
Well, what do you mean? Is my prayer that I'm doing in my mind not as strong as the prayer that I'm putting out with the thought? I know. First, it was the Word, and the Word was with God, if we use a Christian phrase in Genesis. Or if we were to, well, I'm not going to quote those other ones. but Holmes talks about that you have to speak your word into truth, I believe.
Right? He said,
Uh,
bring everything back to thought, because everything that's seen starts with the unseen.
that's what I'm talking about. Is because you have to bring it into thought, and the thought comes with inside of your mind. And you wouldn't even have the thought if you didn't have a reference in your mind for it.
And with the thought becomes a feeling. And that
Right.
feeling is the power behind the thought.
Feeling. Yeah. But where does that thought come from? Remember, you always have to look at that. We've talked about this ad nauseum in the other previous shows that, test the spirit, test the
Well, the
thoughts.
thought comes from what we want to declare.
Think so?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Things are going, let's say things are going, appearing to go miserable. So you bring it back to thought, knowing that everything is working out perfectly. Everything is great. I am, all is well.
So thought is not the feeling though,
Well, it's a
because thought is,
combination of thought and feeling.
there we go. See, that's the things we talk about because that doesn't say anything in the book. It gets close, and then you
It's like
have
a
to have.
coin. You have two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, you have to have what's called critical thinking to put that stuff together. And sometimes it's hard to chew on. You're like, what?
Yeah, you have a thought. What's the feeling behind the thought?
Right,
And if you don't like that feeling behind the thought, change the thought.
exactly. Well, we're at the end of our show. I am Prayers Radio, and you're at what's your
I am spiritalive.com.
okay? And so let's do a closing prayer. Now, I'm knowing right now, I'm recognizing that the universe is infinite, and that everything everywhere is a universal expression of God. I declare and unify with that greater presence in the moment that we're at right now. I'm knowing this and speaking my word of truth into the law, that we are having a fantastic day and that the universe says yes to every aspect of everything that you ever wanted. And that I am speaking the word into the law, knowing this for everybody in the sound of my voice. And I release it into the law. It is done, and so it is.
And so it is.
We shall see you on show number 7, which we might overlap this a little bit because we're going to record this next because we can.